Most brands, creative small businesses that are using AI to write their copy or at least assist with it are making a critical mistake. Their copy is forgettable. It sounds like a robot wearing a human suit. But here's the truth. You can absolutely use AI in your process to cranking out copy and have it still have a human touch. In this video, I'm going to show you how to humanize your brand voice even if you're using AI, because the truth is tools like ChatGPT, Claude, whatever, they're not just changing the game, they're rewriting the rule book. So in this video, I'm going to break down what even makes voice, what are the components. I'm going to take you through a what not to use list, again, especially if you've got ChatGPT up in the background helping you, and we'll end with how to humanize it well. As always, feel free to skip around with the timestamps if that helps. I'm Ashlyn Carter, a conversion copywriter by trade turned entrepreneur and agency owner. I'm also a mama of 3. My time is so important. So on this channel, we explore strategies to help creatives like you scale smarter so you can work from a place of more rest, less hustle. Let's get in. So what even makes a voice feel human? How do you know if it's human or not? According to a recent study, 51.5% of US citizens could accurately identify if something was AI generated text. That's scary. I mean, scroll through your feeds and it would be fantastic if some pieces of copy came with a label that said this was written by a robot. Suddenly, some of those perfectly polished LinkedIn posts or very curated emails that land in your inbox would look a little sus. But a real brand voice has these intangibles. It makes your brand recognizable. Think about Nike's Just Do It attitude, Delta Airlines, their optimistic wanderlust. I mentioned Betches in a recent video. They've got that little bit of sassy snark always. A solid human brand voice too is going to build trust. It ups that credibility factor. People feel like they actually know you. They know your brand. And it's going to foster loyalty because people will have an emotional connection. But if you're like people in my audience and I've heard from you, you get a little overwhelmed with all of the different voices that are out there and trying to figure out, but where's yours in the mix? There's this fear of sounding too generic or inadvertently mimicking another voice. So here's what I tell people. It boils down to the 3 T's. It's the magical combo of tempo, tone, and terminology. That trifecta is going to make your voice unmistakably human. So even if you're using AI to support, you want to run it through that lens every single time. First up, tone. This is the feeling or the mood that you want people to have when they interact with your words and your copy. Usually in my Tuesday emails, I give a breakdown of a brand and I talk about, here's some examples. I'll talk about its tone. What tone does this brand have? So you can go copy stock that brand if you want to have a similar tone. Do you want to be elegant, breezy, minimalist? Or do you want to have that wit, girl next door? There's a million different combinations you could unlock to figure out your tone and put your stamp on it. So that's what makes tone fun. Now, terminology. This is the actual style, the vocab, the words that you're using. This is a silly example. There's a new Harlan Coben show on Netflix, and the lead is she's a detective and she's trying to figure out and find her ex-boyfriend. And she uses an AI tool and runs an analysis, and she ends up finding an article that he's written. She lands on his website because of a specific phrase that she remembers hearing him say before. It fell out of his mouth. She remembered it. She read it on some random website 11 years later, and she was like, I know that that's him. That's what I mean when I'm talking about terminology. Phrases that tumble out of your mouth naturally that people know that is her, that is him talking. By the way, I'll give you an exercise later on how you can start to pull these out of you. I'm just kind of giving you the overview right now. Talked about tone. We talked about terminology. The tempo is the phraseology, the musicality of your voice. You always want, this is a telltale sign when you can figure out if something is written by AI or not. Natural speaking, natural writing, good writing has a musical cadence to it and quality. There's going to be long sentences, there's going to be short sentences, one-word sentences. It's going to alternate and sound like music. So there's a tip when you're writing or editing your own copy, make sure you bake this into it. I love this graphic. I think about it all of the time. So this trifecta, this lens, tone, tempo, terminology is going to make your content unmistakably human. But you are probably, at least I hope, using AI in some capacity. Shout out to this guy who recently made a comment on my video, and I wanted to say, did we say that to farmers when tractors came out? You're not a real farmer unless you ignore the tractors. At this point, you cannot ignore the onslaught that artificial intelligence is having, not just on the laptop economy, but almost every single industry. So you have to learn how to use these tools, but maintain the craftsmanship of your art form. Designers, photographers, it doesn't matter. We're all learning how to use these tools, but also be the engineers behind the thought leadership in our given craft. So how do you make sure then, as you use AI to help you brainstorm and come up with snippets and phrases that you can pull into your copy as you use it to help edit what you have and reshape it. How do you make sure a copy doesn't sound like it was written by a polite robot? Here's ways to spot AI writing. There's great AI checkers out there, GPT-0, Quillbot, but these are typically the giveaways. First up, an overuse of what I'm going to call LinkedIn words. You know what I'm talking about. Usually when AI writes, it loves power words a little too much. Classic example, saying utilize when you could have just said use. Leverage, enhance, robust, vital. When you're seeing all those in the same paragraph, spidey senses up. When you see phrases that no human would naturally say. So this is why one of my favorite editing tips is the roll off your tongue test. If you would not say it, do not type it. Number 2, repetition. You'll see a lot of repetition and it's because they can't critically think. A robot cannot critically think. So you're gonna start to see repetition of thoughts or phrases. You know how humans, when we naturally talk or explain things, we'll say something a couple of different ways to get the point across. At this point, at least, that's not what you're getting when you're getting AI repetition. It's repetition for other purposes, and it's word salady. Number 3, lack of natural storytelling segues. This is huge. This is just a natural sign. There's a coherence problem. It sort of looks logical, but again, it wouldn't be how a natural person would make the story make sense. That's related to this one. There's a lack of specific examples. What I'm going to call those like guttural get out of my head moments. These are the things that you figure out when you're writing your own copy. You figure these out via voice of customer data. So client and customer voice hacking. My audience knows I call it that, when we're just steeping and spending so much time dwelling in what people actually say and how they say it. So that layered with natural asides and anecdotes that you would share if we were talking or hanging out and having coffee. AI tends to hang more in the cloud of vague concepts. Or if you press it and ask it to give you a specific example, it's usually, it should trigger, at least I hope it does, a real example that you can use, because their examples they never are up to snuff. Another telltale, factual face plants. This happens all the time. AI will very confidently tell you a fact that is 100% not true. So you have to fact check everything it spits out. And finally, no personal touch. Humans bring their messy, beautiful life experience to writing. AI is going to keep everything encyclopedia clean. So those real world stories or moments, it's just a little bit too pristine, a little bit too buttoned up. So this in a nutshell, like I said at the top, AI feels like it is wearing a human suit. Like it's technically correct, but something is off. Again, I hope you're using it to help you write faster. This is why I typically am using AI to help me brainstorm, think a different direction, rephrase what I wrote, so then I can look at the rephrased version and think, okay, now I can rewrite it because it got my brain thinking in a different direction. Maybe I'll wildly change in a year, 2 years from now, but I don't use tools like AI to write pretty much the basis of what I'm using. I always use it brainstorming, researching, rephrasing when I'm stuck on something and I need basically to play ball with somebody. Just picture like, I don't know, Mad Men, did they do that? Have somebody sitting in the room and I'm just throwing the ball back and forth, coming up with like ideas. That is a perfect picture of how I use AI to write. So here is a little step-by-step formula. One thing you could absolutely do, I gave this tip to our Copy Bank Club members as one of their AI prompts. Start with your voice. Just like I said, I'm going to start with my ideas and my voice. I want you to do the same thing. So pull writing samples, pull your best stuff, pull your favorite things that you've come up with, and then ask AI to help you codify it. Help you put your finger on what is it about your style, what is it about your phrasing, what is it about your comma count, what is it about the natural syntax that you have in style that makes you. Get it to tell you that back so you can have a codified way of saying, okay, this is how we walk and talk and sound. Number 2, use it to think through the 40-20-40 rule. So if you get something 40% of the way there, you've thought about the framework, the psychological levers that you want to pull. You've come with the voice of customer data, client customer voice hacking. You've come with your voice and your awareness and knowledge of what you want to say, and you've put that into a framework. Then you can use AI for a little 20% judging, playing with ideas, brainstorming, and then you're going to put that final 40% polish on it. So 40-20-40 is a really good way to start playing with AI and not having it overtake your voice. Number 3, prompt engineer better. I'm going to put up a few examples of some of the real prompts that I've thrown in as I've used it to help me bounce back and forth with better ideas when I'm reworking copy. Maybe I'm dusting off copy that I wrote a year ago. It converted super well in a campaign, but I just need to judge it a little bit and I need to get out of my own head because I'm in my way. I'm my own worst enemy. Inject authentic stories and ask it to tell you where you could do that. So maybe you're providing it some copy. You've done most of the copy thinking and writing, but then ask it where in here would benefit from some little asides, anecdotes, and stories that would humanize this even more. Next up, build a lexicon library. So we have a whole template inside Copywriting for Creatives where when we help people figure out their brand voice, they'll codify it inside a brand messaging style guide. In there is a lexicon library. We talked about this a little bit earlier, talking through terminology. So build your own. So when you build your own, you're then able to turn around to a tool and say, hey, here's a list of 100 different phrases that sound like me that I would say, so fold some of these in. Lastly, you could use a tool like humanizer.org and play with it. Let me flip the camera around and show you how you could check this out. There we go. So this is just a pull from the top of a recent newsletter that I wrote, and I'm going to click check for AI and let's see if it thinks it was written by a human or a person. It's going to run it through a few different tools here, and yay, cue the Jeopardy sound just about. But yeah, this was entirely human written. So the next thing I want to do is show you the Humanize feature. Let's play with it a little bit. I'm going to come over here to ChatGPT, and I just asked it to write me 2 paragraphs telling customers to get a free trial of Copy Bank Club. I can insert into an email. So this is 100% AI generated copy, right? Let's see what it comes up with. And I'm not even going to edit it or anything. Okay, so I'm just going to swipe this sucker and then pop it into Humanizer. And let's see if it can understand that this was written fully 100% with AI. Yes, it was. So then you can click over to Humanize and you can start to understand ways that you can add voice. So you see how this is so much better. You can tell there's just a difference in voice. Some of the changes it's going to make are going to add a little bit of emotional depth. So looking for a solution instead of ready to end, agonizing over your next sentence. It's that difference in how do people actually talk. They'll add little nuance too, so dive in instead of dive in. That I still, again, this is just me being hard on it. I still feel like it sounds like a robot wearing human skin, but it's better. So it's just really interesting that you can run your own copy through this, especially if you're using AI. I think the check for AI is the best, and you can clean it up a little bit and add some nuance if you are using AI. Okay, voila. All right, if you're listening to this thinking, okay, I need to codify my voice or at least readdress and make sure that it sounds like what I want it to sound like. I totally went through this last year, talked a little bit about it online. It's so important, especially as your brand and your business matures, to make sure that you're sounding like what you want to. It's so natural too, as your business matures, to want to kind of come back and hit the reset button. If that's you, look down below or click this QR code. You're going to grab my ultimate guide to finding your brand voice, putting it on paper. It's 100% free. It'll also help you as you're working in tools like Claude, ChatGPT, etc. If you can figure out how to write with a distinct brand voice in an AI world, you're going to be spades above other brands. Just think about how many brands you see out there that say, have a completely AI created YouTube channel or totally faceless Instagram feed. I just don't think these things are going to stand the test of time, because what's going to set it apart is having the stamp of human. So the key is starting with your voice. You steer the ship, let AI help you with some of the lifting along the way, and inject those personal touch points and stories that are going to make your brand uniquely you. Remember, the goal is not to completely put your head in the sand like an ostrich and avoid AI, but to call the shots on that magical combo of tempo, terminology, and tone. Do that in a way that makes your audience think, yep, absolutely, that's from her. Love to see it. All right, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you've got any questions about what I covered, drop them down below. And if you're ready to go forward and humanize some of your copy, starting with emails, which I think is the easiest playground to play in, because emails, it's a very natural disappearing medium to work in. Be sure to watch the next video I've got teed up for you. I'll talk to you about writing emails so good they can't ignore them. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.